This tutorial will help you to find the volume of a cylinder. So in this lesson, you're going to be able to find the volume of a cylinder if you are given the height, the radius, or the diameter. So you need to be able to do these 4 things in order to be successful with this lesson. First is you need to know the volume formula for a cylinder, which is pi times radius squared times height. You also need to know how to substitute the correct variable letters for their given values. The third thing you need to be able to do is to convert between a radius and a diameter. So a radius is halfway across a circle, a diameter is the entire way. The formula only uses a radius, so if you are given a diameter, you have to divide that number in half before you can substitute it in for the letter R. And then the last thing you have to do is compute the mathematics to isolate for the given variable. For us it'll be pretty easy because V is the volume and it's already isolated. So we simply just have to do the mathematics on the right hand side. So let's get started. Here's an example of a cylinder which has bases that are both circles, and we're asked to find the volume to the nearest tenth. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start our formula at the top by writing down exactly what we need to know. So we need to know the volume, the radius, and the height, because the pi is standard and always constant here for us. So we don't know the volume, we do know the radius, and we do know the height. So by taking these notes over here on the side, I'm able to substitute the numbers into their correct letter positions, right? Into the correct variables. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the actual letters and replace them with parentheses. You can also fill in these times dots if you need to, but with the parentheses you don't have to. Now make sure you're putting your values in the correct places. This is the radius position, this is the height position. So all you need to do now is pick up your calculator and multiply pi times 3 squared times 1.8. Now sometimes they ask you to leave your answer in terms of pi, and what that means is do this multiplication first and just leave your pi at the end. So let me show you what I mean. So I usually use a fancy calculator, but I suspect that some of you at home are using an online calculator. So I'm just going to go to Google and use the standard calculator here. Again, it is 3 squared times 1.8. I'm going to do part of the problem first. 3, and then the square button is here, right down here. You see that? X with a little y. So 3 raised up to the second power, and we're going to times that, right, 3 squared, times 1.8. So 1.8. And that gives me 16.2. Now I'm not done with the problem, but 16.2 represents the amount, the product here, of the numbers we were given. Now I haven't multiplied by pi yet because pi is irrational and it's going to make my number go on forever and ever and ever. So sometimes a question will ask you to express your answer in terms of pi, and that just means you stop here. But for our example, it said to round to the nearest tenth. So that means I do need to multiply 16.2 times pi. So I'm simply going to press the times sign, and on this calculator, the pi button is over here on the left, all the way in the far column. Press equals, and I get this really long answer, right? 50.893800, so that's a lot of numbers. So 50.8938. So 50.893893, yeah. Now it says to round to the nearest tenth, so that's this digit here. You always look next door to see if you round up or stay the same. 9 is high, right? It's higher than 4, so that is a rounding up value. So 50.9 inches cubed. All right, let's take a look at another question. All right, this time we have a radius of 5 and a height of 8.3. So again, I don't know the volume, I do know the radius, and I do know the height. So make sure you're filling those values, substituting them in for the correct variable. So volume equals pi times radius squared times height. Radius is 5, height is 8.3. Now this time, I'm going to do the entire question in my calculator. Pi times 5 squared times 8.3. So I'm going to clear this out. And I'm going to type pi times 5 exponent 2 times, and what was it again? 8.3, that's right. So 8.3. Just type the whole thing in all at one time. 651.88. 651.88. Now again, we need to round to the 10th place, so we look to the next place value, and that is higher than 4, so we're going to round up. So the volume is 651.9 centimeters cubed. Right? It's three-dimensional, so they have cubic units. All right, let's take a look at one that doesn't have a picture. Or, oh, does have a picture. But let's take a look at this pretty carefully here. The volume, we don't know. The radius, we aren't told. And the height is 8. Right? You see this here? That's not a radius. That is a diameter. So the radius is equal to half of the diameter. So if the diameter is 21, right, we simply divide that in half and we'll get our radius. So for us, the radius is going to be 10.5. Again, filling in my formula with all of the given values. So the radius, which I had to find myself, is 10.5. And the height is 8. Again, I'm going to put this whole thing in my calculator all at the same time. Pi times 10.5 squared times 8. So clear this out. Pi times 10.5 squared times 8. 56.548. 56.548. Again, I need to round to nearest 10th. Now you can only look at the next place value. I know sometimes I see students say to me, oh, well, 8 rounds this up to 5, and so that's going to round that up. But you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that at all. You're only allowed to look at what is already existing in the very next place value, which is 4, which is not a high enough value for me to round up. So the volume is 56.5 cubic yards. All right, I want you to pause the video, take out a piece of paper, try these 4 questions, and then turn the video back on to check your solutions. Pause the video now. All right, I'm going to show you the solutions to the first 2 and then the next 2. So here are the solutions to numbers 1 and 2. Pause the video so you can really look over your work. And now here's the solutions to number 3. Pause the video to look over your work. And then here's the solution to number 4. Pause the video if you need to take a closer look at your work. Otherwise, now you know how to find the volume of a cylinder. So the next thing I want to show you are some actual standardized test questions. And I just want you to get an idea of how they can take what you know and ask you in a different way. So this one's pretty basic. We've done this one together. They're asking you here, right, within a story, right, within a context, that using the mold to the right, you can make some candles. So what is the volume of candle wax that this mold would hold? So you would have to use your volume formula, and you would have to use a radius, not the diameter, and you would fill those values into your formula like I did here, right? I don't know the radius, I know the diameter. But I can find the radius because that's just half the diameter. Fill those numbers in. Now, in this particular question, it actually says they want us to use a rounded value for pi. So it doesn't want us to use the actual pi button on our calculator. It wanted us to use 3.14 only. So you notice I wrote that in my formula. I removed the letter pi and I wrote 3.14. Now sometimes students ask me, where'd you get this 24 from? Well, I did partial work here, right? I did 2 squared times 6, and that's where I got the 24 from. All right, let's take a look at another standardized test question. Pause the video here See if you can give this one a try on your own. All right, let's take a look at how you did. I've worked out the solution to number 1 in green. I worked out the solution to number 2 in blue. And it looks as though the volume of number 2 is much larger. It's almost twice as large. So as I read through all of the answers, only choice G was correct. Okay, let's take a look at another question here. So pause the video, give this a good long look, and be careful with that dimension. All right, let's take a look at what you should have gotten. So remember, this is a diameter, not a radius. So you have to take half of that number, which is 1.75, and fill that in your formula down here. When rounded to the nearest hundredths, I got choice D. All right, so this is the final question I'm going to show you today. I don't have a solution worked out. I'm going to work it out with you, but certainly pause this video and give it a good hard try before you look at my solution. I really want you to spend some time thinking about this problem. All right, here we go. An unused roll of paper towel is shown. What is the volume of the unused roll? Now, inside a roll of paper towel, there's a hole, right? So you can put it on a holder. So if there's nothing in here, then that section cannot be included in the volume. So what we're going to do is find the volume of this outer roll of paper towel, and then we're going to find the volume of this skinny cylinder hole in the middle. And we're going to take the larger value, and we're going to subtract the smaller volume value. That's what we're going to do to find the volume of just the paper towel. So again, we have an outside, the full yellow shape here, and then this dotted shape in the middle, this skinny cylinder, we're going to subtract that from the larger one. So here we go. The larger cylinder has a volume of pi times radius squared. Now the radius of the large cylinder is not 4.5. The radius of the large cylinder is half of this. So the radius is 7 squared, and the height is 28, right? So that's my large cylinder. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to subtract the volume from my smaller cylinder, the skinny cylinder in the middle here. So let's see what we've got. That skinny cylinder has a radius of half of 4.5, right? So it's going to be half of 4.5, which is 2.25. And the height is still 28, right? The height is still 28. All right, so you're definitely going to need a calculator for this. So pi times 7 squared times 28. So pi times 7 squared times 28. So I'm taking a shortcut here because I already know what 7 squared is. And I get 4310.265. 4310.265. 4310. Did I say 265? Yeah. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing with this skinnier cylinder. Pi times 2.25 squared times 28. So pi times 2.25 squared 28. 445.320. 445.320. 445.320. All right. So now I just have to subtract 4310.265. So 4310.265 subtract 445.320. $3864.985. 945. Centimeters cubed. Now it didn't specify what place value to round to, so I went to the thousandths place, but I certainly could round that up to approximately 3,864.9. All right, that concludes our lesson on how to find the volume of a cylinder.